For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a Saturday morning in 1999, 41-year-old Omar Haddad left his family's home in rural Illinois for a solo hike. His destination, the rugged, isolated trails of Starved Rock State Park. A dedicated high school history teacher, Omar sought new photos for an upcoming lesson plan. He never arrived. Despite an extensive investigation that mobilized park rangers, local law enforcement, and desperate volunteers, Omar Haddad vanished without a trace. His sedan was found abandoned overnight at the La Salle Canyon trailhead, a chilling, silent testament to his disappearance. For 20 agonizing years, his family lived with crushing uncertainty, clinging to fragile hope. Then, in 2019, a remarkable discovery was made deep within a mud-sealed alcove in the park, a laminated trail map. This is the complete investigation into what truly happened to Omar Haddad. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Starved Rock State Park, nestled along the Illinois River, has long been celebrated as a jewel of the Midwest. Its towering sandstone bluffs, carved by millennia of glacial meltwater, form a labyrinth of canyons and waterfalls, drawing hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. Among its most picturesque, yet potentially challenging, routes is the La Salle Canyon Spur, a trail known for its dramatic rock formations and secluded alcoves. It was to this seemingly idyllic setting that Omar Haddad, a 41-year-old high school history teacher, ventured on a crisp Saturday morning in the autumn of 1999. Omar Haddad was a man deeply committed to his craft. His passion for history extended beyond textbooks, often leading him to seek out tangible connections to the past, experiences he could then bring back to his students. He believed in immersive education, in showing rather than simply telling. On this particular weekend, his goal was to capture a fresh series of photographs for a new lesson plan on early American exploration, believing the park's rugged terrain offered a compelling visual backdrop. He was known for his meticulous planning, always carrying the necessary gear for a day hike, his laminated park map a constant companion. His sedan, a reliable four-door, was a familiar sight in the park's main parking lot, marking the start and end of many such educational expeditions. But as Sunday dawned, a subtle unease began to ripple through the park staff. Omar Haddad's sedan remained in the trailhead parking lot, undisturbed, a solitary sentinel in the early morning light. The vehicle had been observed there throughout Saturday night, an unusual occurrence for a day-use area. A quick check confirmed no overnight parking permit had been issued. The sight of an unattended car, especially one left overnight, was the first tangible indicator that something was amiss. Park rangers, accustomed to minor incidents like lost hikers or forgotten keys, approached the vehicle with growing apprehension. The car was locked, with nothing overtly suspicious about its appearance, yet the silence surrounding it spoke volumes. Omar Haddad, a man who always returned, had not. The discovery of the abandoned sedan triggered an immediate, low-level alarm, transforming a picturesque weekend outing into a potential crisis. A dedicated history teacher, seeking inspiration for his classroom, had simply vanished, leaving only his car as a silent testament to his presence, and his inexplicable absence from Starved Rock State Park. The discovery of Omar Haddad's unattended sedan quickly escalated from a cause for concern into a full-scale missing person investigation. Within hours of the vehicle being flagged, Starved Rock State Park rangers, joined by local law enforcement from La Salle County and a dedicated corps of park volunteers, mobilized for an intensive ground search. The immediate focus was the labyrinthine network of trails surrounding the La Salle Canyon Spur, the area Omar was known to frequent for his photographic expeditions. Teams fanned out, systematically sweeping the rugged terrain, calling out his name, and meticulously examining every foot of ground for any sign of his passage. The early days of the search were characterized by a frantic energy, fueled by the hope of a quick resolution. Search dogs were brought in, their keen senses deployed across the varied landscapes of forest floor, rocky outcrops, and creek beds. Helicopters performed aerial surveys, their powerful spotlights piercing the night, searching for any anomaly in the dense canopy below. Yet, as the hours stretched into days, the vastness of Starved Rock proved to be an formidable adversary. The park, with its numerous caves, deep ravines, and thick undergrowth, offered countless places where a person could disappear without a trace. Investigators found themselves confronted with an unnerving absence of evidence. There were no signs of a struggle, no discarded personal belongings, no torn fabric snagged on a branch, no clear footprints beyond the myriad left by other hikers. Omar Haddad, a seemingly prepared and experienced hiker, had left no breadcrumbs. Early theories encompassed a range of possibilities: a simple hiking accident, a fall from a slippery bluff, getting disoriented in an unfamiliar section of the park. The remote possibility of foul play was also considered, though without any physical evidence to support it. It remained a speculative and unsubstantiated hypothesis. As the initial, intensive efforts yielded nothing, a palpable frustration began to set in. The search grid had been expanded repeatedly, covering areas far beyond what Omar might have reasonably traversed in a single day. Posters bearing his photograph and description were distributed, and public appeals for information were broadcast. Yet the phone lines remained largely silent. Omar Haddad had simply vanished. He was not merely lost. He was, inexplicably, gone. The initial hope which had propelled the tireless search teams slowly began to diminish, replaced by a grim realization that the answer to his disappearance was not to be found in the immediate aftermath. The Starved Rock enigma had begun. The relentless, exhaustive search for Omar Haddad eventually yielded to the inexorable march of time. Days of frantic activity bled into weeks, then months, and finally, years. The initial surge of manpower, the specialized K-9 units, the aerial reconnaissance, and the dedicated volunteers slowly dissipated as the vast expanse of Starved Rock State Park refused to surrender its secrets. Each new season brought a fresh, albeit diminishing, wave of hope, followed by the familiar disappointment as no new evidence emerged from the changing landscape. The trees shed their leaves, the snow blanketed the canyons, spring brought new growth, and summer hikers returned, but Omar Haddad remained irrevocably absent. Leads, once pursued with urgent intensity, grew scarce and then vanished altogether. The tips that did trickle in, often from well-meaning but ultimately misinformed citizens, proved to be dead ends. Without a body, without a crime scene, and without any tangible clues beyond the abandoned sedan, the active investigation gradually ground to a halt. The case, once a priority, was eventually reclassified, slipping quietly from the front lines of active inquiry into the somber archives of unsolved mysteries. Omar Haddad's file became another cold case, a thick binder filled with unanswered questions and diminishing prospects. The central enigma persisted, a stubborn question mark hanging over the tranquil beauty of Starved Rock. How could a seemingly prepared individual, a dedicated teacher on a routine photographic excursion, simply disappear without a trace in a well-trafficked state park? There were no signs of struggle, no indications of an accidental fall that might have left a body exposed, no evidence of foul play to direct investigators down a darker path. He had not merely become lost. He had, by all appearances, dissolved into the very landscape he sought to document. 2 decades passed since Omar Haddad's sedan was found sitting alone at the La Salle Canyon trailhead. 20 years of silence, 20 years of speculation, and 20 years of enduring grief for a family left without closure. The park continued to thrive, its trails echoing with the laughter of new generations of visitors, largely unaware of the enduring mystery it held within its ancient bluffs. The disappearance of Omar Haddad had become a local legend, a cautionary tale, a persistent whisper of the unknown that underscored nature's capacity to both inspire and obscure. The case had gone cold, seemingly destined to remain an enduring, unresolvable enigma. 2 decades had passed since the last active search party disbanded, since the last news report faded from the local airwaves, and since Omar Haddad's file was stamped cold. The vibrant autumn of 1999 had given way to 20 cycles of seasons, each one bringing fresh foliage and new snow, yet no answers to the enduring mystery of the missing history teacher. Starved Rock State Park continued its timeless existence, its canyons carved deeper by the relentless forces of nature, largely undisturbed by the human tragedy it harbored. But even nature, in its slow and deliberate way, sometimes chooses to reveal its secrets. It was during a routine geological survey in the spring of the 20th year that the first crack in the enigma appeared. Park volunteer Margot Esquivel, a fixture on the trails for over a decade, had reported unusual erosion patterns near the La Salle Canyon Spur, an area known for its dynamic rockfalls. Geologist Trent Sadowski, specializing in the regional sandstone formations, was dispatched to assess the site. His examination revealed a significant, albeit localized, geological shift. A massive slab of sandstone, dislodged by years of water seepage and freeze-thaw cycles, had recently collapsed, exposing a previously inaccessible alcove. The alcove, narrow and almost entirely obscured, was partially filled with a thick, dried mud, indicating it had been sealed off for a considerable time, perhaps decades, after a past flood event. As Sadowski carefully probed the sediment-choked space, his gloved fingers brushed against something unexpectedly smooth and resistant. With Margot's assistance, they meticulously cleared away the hardened mud. What emerged, caked in ancient earth but remarkably preserved, was a laminated park map. It was precisely the kind Omar Haddad was known to carry, its protective plastic sheath having shielded it from the ravages of time and moisture. The discovery sent a ripple of disbelief through the small team. A tangible item, undeniably linked to Omar Haddad, had surfaced after 20 years of silence. The map, a seemingly innocuous piece of paper, represented the first concrete evidence since the abandoned sedan. Its presence in a mud-sealed alcove, revealed only by a recent geological event, suggested a narrative far more complex than any initial speculation. The cold case, long relegated to the archives of the forgotten, had been abruptly, shockingly, reignited. Hope, a fragile commodity after 2 decades, suddenly flared, transforming a long-dormant investigation into a renewed, urgent quest for truth. The laminated map, recovered from its unlikely tomb, immediately shattered the 2-decade silence surrounding Omar Haddad's disappearance. Its mere existence, a tangible link to the missing teacher, injected a powerful surge of renewed energy into what had long been a dormant file. The La Salle County Sheriff's Department, now under new leadership but with institutional memory of the cold case, officially reopened the investigation. Detectives, some of whom were barely out of high school when Haddad vanished, approached the evidence with a fresh perspective, unburdened by the frustrations of the initial, fruitless search. The park itself, once a scene of a desperate search, now became a potential crime scene, or at least a place where a tragic accident had finally begun to yield its truth. The map itself became the centerpiece of this revitalized inquiry. It was transported under strict chain of custody to the State Forensic Laboratory, where specialists began a meticulous examination. Every square inch of the laminated surface was scrutinized under powerful microscopes, illuminated by various light sources. The goal was to extract any trace evidence that might have survived 2 decades of burial and moisture. Fingerprint analysis was attempted, though the conditions were not ideal for such delicate impressions. Hair and fiber evidence was meticulously collected, however minute. The edges were checked for tears or abrasions, and the folded creases for any embedded material. It was during this painstaking analysis that a critical detail emerged. Across one section of the map, near what appeared to be a marked trail, faint but distinct grease smudges were observed. These were not the typical smudges of dirt or mud. Their texture and slight sheen suggested an organic, possibly food-related, origin. The forensic team recognized their potential significance immediately. Unlike general park debris, a specific type of grease could be a unique identifier, a timestamp, a breadcrumb left behind by Omar Haddad in his final moments. Specialized chemical tests were performed on the minute residue, aiming to break down its composition and identify its source. Investigators began to theorize about the map's function in the alcove. Had Omar dropped it there? Was he seeking shelter? Or had the map been deliberately placed, perhaps as a desperate attempt to mark his location before the mud sealed his fate? The smudges, however small, represented the first truly personal clue since the abandoned sedan. They offered a glimmer of hope that the map could do more than just confirm Omar had its presence in the park. It might, against all odds, reveal the precise circumstances of his vanishing act. The scientific analysis of these elusive grease marks became the new focal point, a silent testament to the past, holding the promise of a long-awaited breakthrough. The forensic analysis of the faint grease smudges yielded a breakthrough far beyond initial expectations. It was not merely animal fat, but a complex composite, meticulously traced back to a specific type of seasoning and oil used in a unique deli meat preparation. Further investigation revealed that this particular wrapper design, and crucially, the specific blend of ingredients in the sandwich it held, were a limited-time offering, sold exclusively during the autumn of 1999. This detail was not merely significant, it was definitive, a precise timestamp from the past. Detectives, armed with this highly specific lead, began to canvass local delis operating in 1999. Their search eventually led them to Uncle Vito Rinaldi's Italian Deli, a beloved, long-standing establishment known for its authentic sandwiches. Vito, a man of meticulous habits, still possessed some of his old sales records. A laborious review of microfiched receipts from that autumn revealed a transaction matching the sandwich type, timestamped for Saturday, October 23, 1999, at 10:17 a.m. This purchase receipt, now directly linked to Omar Haddad's map, narrowed his hiking window to an unprecedented degree. This precise time and date were immediately cross-referenced with historical meteorological and hydrological data for Starved Rock State Park. The correlation was astonishing. Records indicated a localized, intense, flood pulse event had occurred in the La Salle Canyon area during the late afternoon of that very Saturday. Geologist Trent Sadowski, who had been instrumental in the map's discovery, confirmed that such a rapid surge of water could indeed have scoured away accumulated sediment, temporarily exposing an otherwise hidden cut-through. A narrow, previously impassable fissure, leading deeper into the canyon's complex geology, culminating in a constricted, dead-end shaft. The disparate threads of evidence, separated by 2 decades, suddenly converged into a coherent, chilling narrative. Omar Haddad had purchased his lunch, ventured into the park, and likely encountered this newly exposed, temporary passage during his hike. Enticed by its novelty or seeking a unique photographic angle, he entered, perhaps unaware of its dead-end nature, or that the receding floodwaters would quickly redeposit sediment, sealing his exit behind him. The laminated map, bearing the grease smudges of his last meal, had been dropped or discarded in a desperate moment, only to be entombed by the very forces that had briefly granted him access. The mystery of Omar Haddad's disappearance, long shrouded in impenetrable silence, now had a precise location, a definitive timeline, and a tragic explanation. With the convergence of evidence pointing directly to a specific, previously overlooked section of La Salle Canyon, the final, directed search for Omar Haddad began. This was not the sprawling, desperate effort of 2 decades prior, but a precise, calculated operation. Teams, guided by Trent Sadowski's geological expertise, focused on the area where the flood pulse had exposed the transient cut-through leading to the dead-end shaft. Specialized equipment was brought in, carefully navigating the delicate sandstone formations. The process was slow and methodical, each layer of mud and fallen rock meticulously removed, conscious of preserving any evidence that might lie beneath. Within days, the tragic truth emerged. Deep within the constricted, dead-end shaft, beneath layers of compacted sediment and debris, the remains of Omar Haddad were discovered. Beside him lay his camera, still clutched in a protective case, and a small, water-damaged notebook. Its pages filled with observations for his lesson plan. The discovery brought a somber finality to the 2-decade enigma. Forensic examination confirmed the identity, providing the irrefutable proof that had eluded investigators for so long. The reconstruction of Omar Haddad's final moments painted a clear, yet heartbreaking picture. On that fateful Saturday, after enjoying his unique deli sandwich, he had ventured deeper into starved rock. The intense flood pulse, a force of nature both destructive and revealing, had temporarily scoured open a narrow passage, a cut-through he had never seen before. Likely driven by his teacher's curiosity, perhaps seeking an unparalleled photographic opportunity for his students, or simply a shortcut, he entered the newly exposed shaft. Unbeknownst to him, the receding waters and subsequent settling of mud and debris swiftly sealed his exit, trapping him in the dark, unforgiving embrace of the earth. He had not been lost or the victim of foul play. He had been entombed by the very geological forces that define starved rock. For Omar Haddad's family, the discovery, though devastating, finally brought a measure of closure after 20 years of agonizing uncertainty. The answers, once deemed impossible, had been revealed, allowing them to grieve with the truth rather than the weight of the unknown. The resolution was a testament to the perseverance of a few crucial individuals. Park volunteer Margot Esquivel's keen observation of erosion patterns, Trent Sadowski's geological insight into the fallen slab, and Uncle Vito Rinaldi's meticulous record-keeping, which provided the crucial timestamp, had all, in their own ways, contributed to solving the enduring mystery. It was a poignant reminder that sometimes nature itself, in its slow, deliberate movements, holds the ultimate key to human stories, eventually revealing its secrets, no matter how long it takes to find them.